So what I want to talk about is what your customer actually cares about when it comes to your SaaS product. Now, in terms of the experience that I have, I've explored the range of possibilities anywhere from building a solution to a problem that ultimately didn't exist. Not ideal. I don't recommend it, but it sure was a great experience. All the way to and through on the extreme opposite end now, before I write any code or build anything related to a new product, I will sell it first. That's right. I will figure out whether or not I could sell it before I build it. And I use that as a form of validation. So I've been through pretty much those two extremes and any combination in between. And from that experience, here's what I've come to understand about what your customer actually cares about when it comes to your SaaS product. So, first and foremost, the top priority, above all else, which may not be shocking, but it is all too easy to forget, is your customer primarily cares about whether or not your SaaS product actually solves their problem. What they're realistically looking for when it boils down to, when you boil everything down to it and you get down to brass tacks, it's whether or not your product actually solves their problem. More than anything, that's what they actually care about, and that's where they take action, right? So regardless of what they talk about, regardless of what they ask about, that's the one that matters most, first and foremost. Secondly, and this is one where a lot of folks like us get stuck because we obsess over the cool tech that we use, how we build it, how creative the solution is, whatever. Your customer doesn't care how you solve the problem. I know that sounds counterintuitive, and it is, but that's been my experience. They largely don't care. We care, but they don't, right? Especially if you have an engineering background, right? We get excited and sometimes passionate about how we solve problems, but your customer doesn't care. What they care about is whether or not your product actually solves the problem. If it does, that's what matters to them. If it solves it well, if it solves it consistently, for the most part, nothing beyond that actually matters. So that's the second one that I wanted to mention. And then the last one, and this one's really important. And this gets into some of the human psychology behind building SaaS products into companies, is your customer, in this case, your prospective customer, needs to have a certain element of trust in you in order for them to take the next step and that leap of faith to try your solution to the problem that they're experiencing. So this is where everything else comes into play, right? It's your site, it's the credibility, it's the language you use, it's them understanding and becoming familiar with you and trying to build a form of trust or relationship with you and your company or your product so that it motivates them to get through any objections they may have or anything that may be giving them pause in terms of taking that next step and ultimately trying your SaaS product to see whether or not it solves their problem. If you can get to that step, that's a really important milestone. So the building trust element, really important as well. So to recap, what your customer cares about most, first and foremost, again, above all else, does your product actually solve their problem? Matters more than anything. Number two, they largely don't care how you solve the problem or the tech that powers the solution, so to speak. And then the third one, ultimately, is that they need to have a certain element of trust in you. There's a lot of scams out there. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of vaporware. There's all kinds of stuff out there that has fractured trust and made it harder to build that trust. So part of what you need to do as part of building this as well too is build a relationship with them, get them to a place where they feel like they can trust you, which incentivizes them to give your solution a shot and then ultimately become hopefully a long-term happy customer with you. So how do you put this stuff into action? What do next steps look like for you from here? Well, first and foremost, I'd say is use these principles and what I've learned through practice, through lots of failure and some success in terms of reprioritizing what it is you are currently working on. You may have a lot on your list or maybe a lot you want to do, some of which may be more relevant than others. Use these principles to kind of guide that. If what you're focusing on currently, assuming you're in that somewhere between that 0 to 1 stage, you should use these guidelines to reprioritize. Drop the stuff that doesn't matter, focus on the stuff that does. And then in terms of feedback, I'd love to hear from you always. So if the platform supports it, please leave a comment. If it doesn't, reach out to me or figure a way to reach out to me on bootstrappersparadise.com.